Mario Winans is one of the music industry's most accomplished artists, producers, and songwriters. His resume includes names such as Kanye West, Janet Jackson, Jay-Z, Jennifer Lopez, Aretha Franklin, Jamie Foxx, Mary J. Blige, Whitney Houston, Brian McKnight, the Notorious B.I.G., P. Diddy, and of course, his own Winans family. In 1997, he released his critically acclaimed solo debut, Story of My Heart. In 2004, he released his incredibly successful second LP, Hurt No More, which included the smash single, I Don't Wanna Know, which topped charts around the world, landing in the top 10 in over 15 countries. Hurt No More would go on to become a commercial success, reaching number 1 on the Billboard R&B Hip Hop Albums chart, as well as being certified platinum in over half a dozen countries around the world. In 2011, Mario produced the Trey Songz single Can't Be Friends, which topped the R&B charts for 13 weeks, along with executive producing the Diddy Dirty Money album, Last Train to Paris. Over the last couple of years, Mario has donned his executive hat as the executive music producer on Fox Network's hit show, The Four, while continuing to oversee numerous film, television, and music productions.
My inspirations came and started with wanting to be a drummer. I used to pull pots and pans out of my grandmother's and my mother's cabinets, but I would beat on the pots and pans on the floor. And so it all started there. There was definitely rhythm in my blood. And then once I got into the drum machine, that's when the programming aspect opened up. I started looking for the feeling. Would get attracted to Phil Collins, to Sting, to Quincy Jones. And then from that, I started studying the producers. And then, you know, I'm still a drummer, so of course Teddy Riley, all the way to Bruce Hornsby, that will play songs, but his song, and within his songs, his piano was almost like the second artist in the song. It was Bruce Hornsby in the range, but it was really Bruce Hornsby, that piano, and then the range. There's this guy named Dwayne Turners from Youngstown, Ohio, who had this group called Anointed, and he called me when I was 15. He was like, man, I got this group, these young kids from Youngstown called Anointed, and I want you to work with them. I was like, cool, man. So I think I did 6 songs on that album for like $1,500. That was like my first standing on my own production gig. And I did 6 songs on that album. We won Best New Artist, so I was happy about that. Fast forward to 19 years old, I started producing R&B and hip hop, and I signed a deal with Dallas Austin. I met him through a couple of friends of mine, Tim and Bob, who were a phenomenal hit-making producing duo. You know, I was already sampling, but I would like, you know, just take a lot of drums and sounds from CDs. But it was those guys, Dallas and mainly Tim from Tim and Bob, who got me into the sampling from records. So what has started happening is, like, in Dallas's camp, they told us, you know, it's good to, when you make the tracks, put the hooks on them. And then they asked me, have you ever thought about being an artist? I was like, absolutely not. They kept asking, a lot of people kept asking me, like, yo, man, I'm telling you, you should work on the album, you should work on the album. I was like, all right, cool. So you know what? I recorded the verses on a couple of the songs, which was Don't Know from my first album, Motown. And they sent it to Andre Harrell. And he was like, I want to sign it, right? So now I ended up wearing another hat. I was like, oh man, we have a body of work called Story of My Heart that came out on Motown. It did absolutely nothing. I mean, you know, the funny, I mean, industry-wise and people who did get the album, you know, they enjoyed the album, they appreciate the album, they still say it's some of my greatest body of work. But during the time Andre had resigned, there was so much going on at Motown. I was going through some things. I wasn't ready to be an artist, so when it came to performing, it was terrible. Give me a microphone now, that's a different story. That song for me started way before I even got to Bad Boy. I was laying in bed watching this movie called Sleepwalkers. And in the end credits, there's this voice that comes on. I was like, man, that is amazing. I'm gonna do something with that at some point. This is like in the early 90s, like maybe 95, 96, right? Fast forward, I hear it, ready or not? Yeah, I'm like, man, they did it. Like somebody did it, you know what I'm saying? Like, man, somebody did it. So fast forward, I was in the studio in the city. I had sampled it anyway, and then I was just going through some sounds, and that came across that one, and then I came across this EPMD beat, boom, 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 and I just put the two together. I was already feeling something, like I wanted to write something, so that drum beat just came on, and I found it, and it was loaded up, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. I'll go back and finish it if I need to add more, but I'm like, this is perfect. I ain't even got to program no drums. It's cool, perfect. Let's just put that in the computer. You know what I'm saying? And I went in the booth, man.
Nothing that I do, recording, producing wise, without Mario Winans.
It's the bomb, no fallout gear, no shelter.
I'm sitting in the living room, I'm watching TV, and this is like 96, 97. So I'm watching, and then I see the Benjamin's video come on. Like, man, this is crazy, it's hot. Boom, then I see One More Problems video come on. I'm like, man, and I'm like, yo, I need to get with these guys. So I called Kevin Wells, who's a good friend of mine. He's also the guy who brought 112 the Puff. He's like, all right, give me 10 minutes. So he called me back in 10 minutes. He was like, call this number. I'll never forget, it was a 516 number. He's like, this Puff is at his Hampton house. I didn't know what the heck the Hamptons was, none of that, right? So I called, Puff answered the phone. Puff answered the phone. Like, yo, what's up, Playboy? I was like, yo, what's going on, man? He's like, yeah, man, I've been hearing a lot about you. Yo, I heard you did this and this artist and this artist and this artist. He said, man, I done made D-Dot over $1 million. I made Stevie J over $1 million. Ron Lawrence over $1 million. He said, I'm telling you, sign these papers, I'm gonna make you an effing millionaire. I was like, well, all right. Sounds good to me, Jack. So he said, you know, come to New York, we sit down and we talk, you sign on that dotted line, and that's it. I was like, done. Flew to New York that weekend, man, and this is exactly what happened.
I bring to you my auntie.
And without God, I am nothing. I would have never been nothing, and I will never be nothing. God is my everything, man. And the more and more I stopped putting him in a box, the more I grew in life and in him. I just encourage everybody to know him for yourself. You ain't gotta put on no suit, you ain't gotta go nowhere. Not saying that you shouldn't, because there's different levels and certain people need certain things. But you don't have to do nothing but open your eyes and be breathing, and you can speak to him. You understand what I'm saying? So for me, God is everything, man. God and family, it's a foundation that I think is necessary for life in general. You know, that's the makeup of Mario Winans.